Should married couples get tax breaks in order to have more kids? Nigel Farage has given a big speech this morning. He's expected to promise his party would overhaul the tax system to incentivise people to get married and tackle the falling birth rate. His plans would see one spouse exempt from paying tax on the first 25 grand of their income. The other would get a tax-free allowance of 20 grand. The current marriage allowance lets you transfer a bit of your tax-free allowance to your spouse, but only if you earn below a certain rate. It's thought they'd pay for all of this by scrapping net zero, closing migrant hotels and deporting illegal asylum seekers. I want to know what you think. Does it sound like a good plan? Or do you think you don't have to be married to have children? 0207 862 2222 is the number, and the phone lines are open right now. Tell me, guys, is this living in the past? I'm going to go full disclosure here, right? We had kids, we weren't married. And I don't feel like we're outliers. I feel like we're pretty, I don't know, mainstream. Narinder, what do you make of this policy?
OK, so the first thing I want to say is, why am I listening or even discussing the leader of a party of 5 MPs? I don't really care what Nigel Farage says. He's not in power. I don't know why we're all obsessed about what he says.
Way ahead in the polls.
I don't care about polls. If he's listening, how are you going to pay for this, Nigel? How are you going to pay? Because none of his policies make any economic sense whatsoever. There's no money in the pot. How are you going to pay for this? Fantastic. 25k, you're not going to be taxed. 20k, you're not going to be taxed. We'd love that.
His claim that net zero goes kicking migrants out of hotels, that's where that money comes from.
Good luck with that. Good luck with getting the country and the economy and the NHS back on its knees. Good luck with that, Nigel. Because you know what? He could sell bits of the moon to people and they're going to accept that. Oh, great. What I care about is what Keir Starmer is going to be doing right now. Okay. I don't really care for Nigel Farage.
Cristo, it's not a great premise for a marriage, is it? You know, the fact you're going to get 45 grand off your tax. If that's the reason you're getting married, then it's going to fall apart pretty quickly, isn't it?
Well, I couldn't agree more with that statement, actually. I don't think you should be getting married because you think, yeah, I'm going to get a tax break. But firstly, it is relevant what Nigel Farage and Reform say, because we've seen what happens when Reform say certain things. The Prime Minister does tend to listen and potentially change. And you're right, it's happening the other way around as well, but especially with the child allowance, benefit allowance. But I actually think that we should be moving towards a low tax, high productivity society, and a society that is based on incentivising people rather than either penalising them or trying to hand out money to them.
Is that the right incentive, though? Because, I mean, marriage is now below 50% in the country, so is that something that people value anymore? Is it imposing a value on people when actually we've moved on from that?
I think it's just making them consider that value a little bit more. I think people being married is a nice thing for society. It's a good thing for society. But also, this is precisely what Reform should be doing. Reform, you would normally just talk about them within the context of immigration. And that's all that you would think that they would stand for. However, we are in a society where tax rates are through the roof. People aren't incentivised to want to work. Now, we seem to want to solve that in the context of the birth rate by saying, well, look, should we be giving more of an allowance to people to have children, as in state money? No, what we should be doing is saying, look, actually, you can keep more of your money in your pocket. You can be more productive because the money is actually staying with you. And actually, tax rates tend to go up when we have lower taxes.
I tell you what,
Farage is alienating his own...
You're going to be delighted, Narinder, because we can hear what he said. He's actually spoken already. Have a look at this.
So we want to go much, much further to encourage people to have children, to make it easier for them to have children. And that is why I also believe that having a transferable tax allowance between married people is the right thing to do. What is absolutely true, and the evidence is there to prove it, is that where people who are married stay together for the longest period of time, the children that grow up in those environments have the best chance of success in life.
OK.
Oh, my goodness, from the man who's been divorced how many times himself? I mean the hypocrisy. The fact is, look, I'm a mum. I've been married for many, many years, actually 30 years. Yesterday was our wedding anniversary. And you can't, I don't buy this, that you're going to pay women to have more babies. Like, that just sounds madness. That actually, we're going to pay you and you'll have more babies. That's not why women aren't having
Massive
babies.
problem with
It's
absentee
not because
fathers in this country. Massive problem with fathers not showing
But that's
up.
not the reason women aren't having babies. I think that actually this is a Western Eastern thing. I think that women are so encouraged about career, that they're not thinking about motherhood is just not looked at as being some kind of massive reward.
I believe, actually, that women have been given some amazing choices in society, and quite right too. But I think that a lot of women have then been demonised who want to say, actually, my choice would be to want to actually just be a mum. Now, why not structure the tax system and incentivise people by having more money in their pocket that want to do that?
OK, let's take some calls. Let's find out what people out there think. Jackie's in London. Does it make sense to you, Jackie, to give married couples a tax break that maybe couples very happy making a family together don't get? Why is marriage the difference?
But do you know what? I think marriage is important to people that think it's important. But to me, the tax thing says to me, as a woman, that unless I'm married, you're going to get a tax break. What you're telling me is I can get more money from the government if I get married.
Yep.
I don't need to be married. I don't want to be married. I'm in a 35-year relationship, 2 beautiful children. We're getting on. Why are you sitting there incentivising my children to sit there, get married, have a tax break? It's archaic.
OK, Nigel Farage's point there, as he was saying it, is that statistically, married couples have a better chance of staying together in the long term. So
I think that's rubbish. I think he's talking rubbish.
But if the statistics say that, are the statistics rubbish?
So why are divorce rates going
Divorce
up?
rates
But divorce rates might be going up, but you might be more likely to stay together if you are married, and it's an
Only 'cause it'll be
incentive.
harder
You don't
Sorry.
have to take that incentive. It's an incentive.
No, sorry, I mean, your argument doesn't stand true, because people don't generally, unless you're talking lots of money, people don't stay married for the taxes. And if anything,
but does it make it
quite
easier?
frankly,
Does it make it easier to get by? Jackie, does it make it easier to get by? Is that the other way to look at it? By getting this tax break, it makes married life easier.
No. If you're married and you choose that, yes, it helps you for a tax break. But if you choose to be together and not being married, you're actually being told, basically, you're losing out on this money.
Okay.
Best you go get married.
Jackie, thanks for your call.
As opposed to the true life, you actually love, care to be together, but you do not want to be married.
Thanks for your call, Jackie. We're going to take another one. Laura's in Devon. What do you reckon? Does this tax break make sense to you, Laura?
Well, the tax break, I got married in 1974, and if you got married before the end of the tax year, you got all your tax back from that year. So it's not doing anything new. And as for marriage, keeping couples together, that's a load of old tosh, because I was in a very violent marriage and I was stuck in it for 23 years. But if I could have got out the day after the wedding, I would have done.
I mean, that is the difference between now and 1974, isn't it? That people feel that there isn't that stigma that there maybe was in the 60s and 70s of having children out of wedlock, that phrase, and the shame that went with that.
Yeah, because I can remember going to the doctor saying I thought I was pregnant, and he looked at me as if I'd just crawled under the doormat. And I said to him, I am married. I said, and by my dates, when the baby is due, will be 14 months after I got married. So what is the problem with that?
See, this is the bit I don't get, Cristo, is that why not make the tax break incentivise couples staying together? Why marriage when it's clear that marriage is something that is going out of fashion? Civitas said that it will be negligible by 2062 how many people are actually married. So why force the clock backwards?
Because it's when you are married, right, it is the legal recognition of your relationship when it comes to the things like property rights, when it comes to the person whom will immediately inherit your estate, all of those sorts of things. I would counter you with then how would you create a situation where the birth rate starts to go back up, bearing in mind as well that, and I take there are loads of happy couples that aren't married, but it is better that a child is raised by two parents.
I think, Matt, I mean, we're agreeing here because I think that therefore you're creating a chaotic society. And I think marriage creates calmness and peace. And children do. I can't believe I'm agreeing with Nigel Farage here. I think we do need a nice unit, and I think marriage should be encouraged. You seem to be discouraging it, Matt. I don't think we should have a chaotic society.
I mean, what I want to see is stable families. That's what I want to see. However you achieve that, whether it's helping with childcare, making sure education is good, decent housing, all of these things.
I also wonder whether there is a psychological element to being married that means that perhaps you stick problems out a little more than you would have. I sometimes think about me and my partner. We don't have children, but there are times when I'm just literally despairing and I think, this is marriage. You've got to get your head down.
If you don't get married, you have to write the contract every single day. It's not on a piece of paper. You have to wake up and start every day.
You've got to do that with marriage as well.
OK, let's take another call. Vicky's in Lincolnshire. Thanks for your call, Laura, by the way. Vicky's in Lincolnshire. What do you reckon? Tax break. Is that going to result in more kids when birth rates are falling?
Well, I think the birth rate's falling because we've got cancerous chemicals on our food and water. So that's another argument because they've got links with low fertility with that. But going back to the marriage question, if it's sacred, I'm in a relationship, I'm not married, and I consider it a sacred bond. I think they need to educate people on how to have healthy relationships, more important. And having a tax break is going to be a mercenary incentive for people to not view it as a sacred relationship, and I think that's a dangerous path to go down.
Basically,
I think it's very important to have a sacred, relationship education. People who've been in violent relationships, that's not a sacred, stable relationship to bring up children.
I think. Do you know what? I think it's a really nice note to finish on. Whatever happens, the relationship's got to come first, and that is sacred. Thank you so much, Vicky, and thanks for all your calls on that.